You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
The world's gone mad. This is the Free Stater. True conservatism, constitutionalism, may be in the minority now when it comes to the dialogue on political affiliation, but that doesn't mean we stop fighting. We fight for principles over party, values over politicians, and truth over feelings. You've entered a state of freedom. This is the Free Stater. From the plains of the great state of Kansas, where the buffalo roam, jayhawks soar, and the deer and the antelope, well, they're out there playing. This is the Free Stater. I'm Ian Ballinger, and you're listening to our little show right here on the Lanterns Radio Network. Just a fantastic little network. Only the best. This is the best network, that I can tell you. That I can tell you. How was my Donald Trump impression? It's not very good, is it? Oh my gosh, what a Sweet 16 that was. And by the time a lot of you are listening to this, because the show airs Monday through Fridays at 11 a.m. here on the Lanterns Radio Network. So if you're listening to it on the Lanterns live stream and not just on the podcast form, some of this news is going to be a bit past your timetable here. Last night, March 23rd, today's March 24th at the time of this recording, last night was probably one of the craziest Sweet 16s I've ever seen. First of all, what was that West Virginia game? My gosh, they blew it. They blew it. First of all, I don't even know who that West Virginia player was. For anyone that watched the game, he's out there cheesing, acting like he's in a video game or something, just dribbling back and forth. That's not going to work in a real game. I'm sorry. So West Virginia drops it to Gonzaga, which is too bad because in most of my brackets I had West Virginia winning. Duke lost last week. Really happy about that. Baylor plays South Carolina today, hoping Baylor's able to pull that one out. And my Kansas Jayhawks, oh my gosh, this has to be one of the most insane tournament runs I've ever seen the Jayhawks go on. Hoping I'm not jinxing them because they play tomorrow. So really hope I'm not jinxing them. By the time you listen to this, they could be out of the tournament. Jayhawks played Purdue last night. They won 98-66. They went on a 73-33 run to finish out that game. I think that was the stat. It was either 70-33 run or 73-33 run. Insane run. In the last 26 minutes of the game, you score that many points against your opponent in the last 26 minutes of the game. You earned that Elite Eight spot. You played like that against Oregon, who upset Michigan. You are going to make it to the Final Four, especially only playing 40 miles away from your home court of Allen Fieldhouse. You're playing at the Sprint Center in Kansas City. I'm going to echo what some ESPN analysts said. It's almost unfair. Don't care. I'm a Jayhawk fan for life. Still think Kansas is going to win it all. First game of the tournament. Kansas played UC Davis. They won by 38 points. They won 100-62. Then they beat Michigan State by 20. And now they just beat Purdue 98-66. That is insane. That's an insane run. Just that level of consistency, of greatness. And it wasn't passive at all, 98-66, obviously, but then you have people like LeGerald Vick on the Jayhawks. Sorry if I'm boring you if you're not a sports fan, but gosh, I got to talk about this because March Madness is just my favorite time of year. You got some Jayhawk players doing 360 dunks, alley-oops. It was just an insane game, and I can't wait for the Final Four. Cannot wait for the Final Four because I totally believe Kansas is going to make it into the Final Four. Totally believe we're going to go to Phoenix. Totally believe we're going to win it all. If I was a betting man at this point, I would say we were going to play Gonzaga in the national championship. Last week I told you I would tell you where my bracket stood, my best bracket stood. My worst bracket that I made currently sits at 1%. I don't want to talk about that bracket. I never want to look at it again. My best bracket sits at 95% in terms of accuracy. I don't know about you. I think that's pretty good. This week, I only got one wrong, and it was because I had picked Duke to beat South Carolina. Now, technically, that was last week, but we didn't talk about it. This week, I got the Michigan-Oregon game wrong. I predicted Michigan to go on to play the Jayhawks. Other than that, everything else I got right, and I can't believe it. Now, there's another Sweet 16 game today. There's several more today, so could be jinxing myself right now. Picked Wisconsin to beat Florida. Seriously think they got a shot to do that. Picked Baylor to beat South Carolina. Seriously think they got a shot to do that. Gonzaga and Xavier will play each other in the Elite Eight. Kansas and Oregon will play each other in the Elite Eight. So it's going to come down to the winner of the Baylor-South Carolina game, the winner of the Wisconsin-Florida game, and the winner of the North Carolina-Butler game and the UCLA-Kentucky game. Now, what I'm hoping for is a UCLA win, a North Carolina win, and then the Jayhawks play either UCLA or North Carolina in the Final Four. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I don't like John Calipari, so I hope Kentucky gets their butts kicked. But I don't want to play North Carolina because Roy Williams, and Roy Williams used to be a Jayhawk. Anyway, that's enough sports talk. We got a lot to talk about. Speaking of college, had a fun little college assignment in one of my quote-unquote core classes at the University of Kansas last week. The class is on deviancy in America. Ooh, deviancy. Everyone and their mother just wants to be different now. Just wants to be a deviant now. Ooh, deviance. I'm special because I'm a weeaboo. I'm a brony. I'm alt-right. I'm gay. I'm trans. I'm fighting against a fictional patriarchal system that oppresses women. But hey, guys, it really doesn't. Because there is no patriarchal society actively discriminating against the opposite gender, unless you count those societies that promote Islamicism or Sharia. But hey, we're leftists, so we can't do that. Everyone wants to be different now. Everyone wants to be different, and so, as a result, people striving to be normal and follow nature's laws, plural, I'm sorry. Well, doesn't that, depending on your definition of deviancy, doesn't that kind of make them the deviants in today's society? This assignment was a small discussion on deviancy in America and how the media portrays it. Let's just say I admittedly may have gotten a little carried away. Without further ado, here's what a conservative millennial, myself, had to say about the media's representation of deviancy in America. I'm going to try to give you old folks a little sneak peek into the ongoings of the modern-day college experience. Here we go. A few years ago, Jerry Springer of The Jerry Springer Show had two guests on his program who called themselves bronies. A brony is an adult, typically male, but not always. There are some females, fans of Hasbro's My Little Pony television series, a show mainly targeted at aged 5 to 11-year-olds. The brony people, and again, gonna cut off from the paper real quick. We talked about bronies a couple weeks ago. We talked about how a certain episode of this My Little Pony television show portrayed Marxism, socialism, whatever, in a negative light, and how, hey, it's pretty cool, whether you're into children's shows or not. I'm not really, but whatever. It's pretty cool to have a television show on national cable television that isn't afraid to highlight the horrors of big government and socialism. And Marx portrays it as a bad thing. Anyway, the brony people on this talk show about how they like the show because of the message of unity it promotes and because it's cute, etc. And at the end, Springer comments about how because his show invites on the outcasts of society, for anyone that watches the Jerry Springer Show, there are a lot of strange figures, for lack of a better term. Because of this, the bronies would probably, on his show, be considered right in the middle of the normal scale in comparison. And while there's nothing necessarily immoral about an adult watching a children's cartoon, society still looks at a grown man in pink playing with and watching Little Ponies on a Saturday as deviant behavior. Here's a clip from the Jerry Springer Show on the bronies.
Now, this summer, I made headlines without even knowing it. My producers ran a guest search which read, "Are you a brony and your lover objects?" Well, we received a firestorm of angry tweets, voicemails, messages, Facebook messages from bronies upset that we would cast them in a negative light. I don't even know what a brony is. Well, we invited them on our show today, so we're going to find out what it's all about and why people get angry about it if they do. Let's meet Orderman.
Somebody who has an intense love and passion for My Little Pony.
For My Little Pony?
Yes, sir.
Is any Little Pony, or there is an...
The TV show.
The TV show called My Little Pony. What is it that really turns...
See, and again, I'm going to deviate away from the paper for a second. And this goes against the entire point of the paper. Even though there is nothing necessarily immoral or wrong about an adult watching a children's cartoon, I can understand why society sees it as not necessarily good behavior. Doing it alone isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I understand why there's negative connotations to it. It is a little creepy. It is really cringy. And as someone that was involved in a documentary about it, it's on Netflix. You can watch it right now. It's called A Brony Tale. A Brony Tale. It's on Netflix right now. So if you want to watch one of the first films they ever got a credit in, you can go ahead and watch it now. Or not. This is a free country. Anyway. As someone that's been, I guess, sort of researching this subculture for the past couple of years, I understand why it's viewed negatively. It's hard to differentiate between the good and the bad. Let's continue.
You on about the bronies?
Well, I think the show has an excellent message, and everybody can benefit from its message of love, harmony, being true to yourself, and being true to your friends. Personally, I like to get together with my friends and do a little bit of a cosplay from time to time, and just kind of emulate your favorite character and try to act and dress and talk as he or she would act.
There was literally outrage among people that emailed us about us doing a show on bronies.
Wow.
What are they afraid of?
I really don't know what they're afraid of because, frankly, I would like for everybody in the world to know about this show.
Cosplay isn't necessarily about dressing up like horses. It's dressing up like the individual characters from the show.
Okay.
So, for example, I relate to...
See, personally, man, there's just something about this that bothers me deep down. There's just something not right about a grown man in a pink dress. Let's continue.
To Pinkie...
I feel so hypocritical because I know a lot of bronies and a lot of them aren't like this. A lot of them are really awesome people. It's the ones that it's a really touchy discussion. There's no black and white truth to it, and we talk about that later on in the paper, so let's just continue. There's about 20 seconds left.
Pie, who is one of the main characters.
And what does Pinkie Pie do?
Well, each one of the main six is what is called an element of harmony. And Pinkie Pie's element of harmony is laughter. Autumn in here is Rainbow Dash.
Fastest flyer in all of Equestria.
I've heard about doing it doggy style. Is there a horsey style?
I'd like to find out.
Just let me say...
Yep. Something wrong with that. I'd like to find out. There's something not right about that.
On our show, you're right in the middle of the normal scale.
So anyway, that was the clip from the Jerry Springer show. Well, from these examples that we talk about, Jerry Springer had another guest on. Let's compare it with another guest he had on his program. A person who wanted his legs removed because his brain just kept telling him that he didn't need his legs. Now, I don't know about you, but I find it concerning that the audience laughs at this like it's a joke rather than think, hey, gee, guys, this is a pretty serious mental disorder. Maybe this shouldn't be encouraged. But just like that old, and this part isn't in the paper. I'm kind of just giving an example here. What's that old adage about how, like, if you want to boil a frog, you got to put it in lukewarm water and gradually raise the temperature? That's kind of what happens here. More and more people start accepting whatever. If it doesn't hurt me, whatever should be accepted. And yeah, that's an unpopular view to hold in today's politically correct world. The general consensus among the population seems to be that anything goes so long as it doesn't hurt anyone else, and I'd argue that such a mentality normalizes things that indirectly harm society and culture as a result. Encouraging a man who feels that he doesn't need his legs to cut them off might normalize something in society that is harmful and detrimental to society. And from these two examples, I think we can begin to understand how the media portrays deviance. And depending on the subject, it's okay to be a deviant, so long as it doesn't ruin our moral code, so long as it doesn't normalize things that destroy society, how we follow nature's law. If our example of deviance is anyone that doesn't conform to societal norms, doesn't this imply that anyone that isn't politically correct is a deviant? Am I a deviant for referring to the transgender that wants to cut her legs off? Am I a deviant for referring to her name was Sandra on Jerry Springer? Am I a deviant for referring to that person as him rather than she? I was wondering if anyone would pick up on that. I did it intentionally to have an example ready. Even though she identifies as a trans woman, does it make me a deviant because I don't conform to the societal norm that is, we call people by the gender pronoun that they want to be identified with? Does it make me a deviant because I believe that gender is biological and not mental? Could it be possible that there's good deviance and that there's bad deviance based on eternal moral principles and values that are found in and throughout nature? A grown man liking My Little Pony alone isn't necessarily a bad thing. Grown men using My Little Pony as a tool to abuse young children, now you can understand why people are so apprehensive to a grown man liking a children's cartoon. But should that stereotype, should that stigma, should it even exist? Well, maybe. Unless we view it wrong for parents to be extra cautious when protecting their children. For the record, it's not wrong for parents to be extra cautious for protecting their children, but even now in today's America, we see the state intervening when a parent spanks their child. Or we see local governments and police forces punishing parents when children are left alone after dark, when children are allowed to be, what do they call it, free-range kids. In fact, there were news stories just last year. Free-range kids. And the parents being arrested by Child Protective Services or whatever. What it was, Maryland free-range families under attack. This was from CNN. Maryland family under investigation.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, get loose.
Yeah, I don't need that ad to play. Thank you. Maryland family under investigation again for letting kids play in the park alone. A Maryland family, the subjects of national headlines when they were accused of neglect for letting their children, ages 6 and 10, walk home alone from a park, are under investigation again. This time, the children were taken into custody by police officers, held for hours, and Child Protective Services were holding them with the police, according to the family. Danielle Mitev of Silver Spring, Maryland, said, "I can't believe we're going through this. I can't believe they kept our kids for hours. It's 10:30 at night. They've been missing since 6 o'clock. The parents dropped their children off at the park and told them to return home 2 hours later. And when the kids didn't, they started looking for them and grew concerned." So what happened to the culture that allows kids, that allows parents to say, go play, go be with your friends, be home for dinner, be home before the streetlights turn on? Nah, we can't allow that anymore. The state has to get involved now. Does that not concern anyone else? So are those parents deviants for deviating away from today's societal norms that say that you're a neglectful parent if you let your kids go to the park alone? Am I deviant for saying that the state has no right in telling a parent how they raise their kids lawfully? How they discipline their kids? The media views deviance, the general traditional definition of deviance, in a disingenuous way. To most outlets, it's a money-making machine. It's a way to garner more ratings because people like looking at the weirdos, the outcasts. A television producer looks at 2 news stories. The producer, the freak that cuts his legs off because his mind tells him he doesn't need them, is more likely to give the news station higher ratings than a charity drive at the Topeka Rescue Mission. Why? Because it's flamboyant. Because it's sure to invoke outrage across all aisles. And that's what the media specializes in. Invoking outrage. On one side, you'll have an audience that condemns, and on the other side, you'll have an audience that accepts. But doesn't that kind of make the media deviants? Exploiting people and using their outcast nature and using their own deviancy as a way to cause chaos, and as a result of causing chaos, as a result of causing outrage in society, well, you're sure to invoke more ratings. You're sure to invoke more viewerships and more people watching your show. Do you really think the media cares about Black Lives Matter? You really think the media cares about the Women's March, or are they using it to get people riled up on both sides? On one side, you'll have the conservatives complaining about women's marches and Black Lives Matter marches. On another side, you'll have people saying that the conservatives are bigots for even talking about it. I don't know how to define deviancy. I mean, I do. If you look at the dictionary definition, it's anyone that is a nonconformist. So on the outset, I'm a nonconformist. I like that. But at the same time, I think there's a moral code that's found throughout nature that would say that some nonconformity away from this moral code hurts society. The conclusion that I come to is that not all deviants are equal. It's not a black and white issue. Some deviancy is good. Some deviancy is bad. Some deviancy is indirectly harmful. And some deviancy is good but can cause indirect harm. Some harmfulness isn't bad. Some tribulation and adversity isn't bad, though. And to differentiate between the good and bad, we have to go outside what the media is doing, that is, using deviance as a tool for ratings, and actually analyze and conclude what's good behavior and what's bad behavior. Is it unpopular in today's society to question somebody else's life choices? Oh, you bet. You betcha. Absolutely it is. Girlfriend. But in the spirit of this class, I think we have an obligation to do it anyway. Lest we become complacent, lest we say anything goes, and lest we see a society, our society, fall further and further into freefall. Because no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, whether you're left, right, moderate, no matter where you stand on the issues, you can't deny we are divided as a country for a multitude of different reasons. Because some people are nonconformists this way, and some people are nonconformists the other way. As Thomas Jefferson said, question with boldness even the very existence of God. For if there be a God, he must surely rather honest questioning, as opposed to blindfolded fear. My fellow Free Staters, the opinion I just read to you is an unpopular one, and it can be paralleled to conservatism today. To be a deviant today, arguably, is to be pretty normal, depending on your definition of deviancy, because everyone is striving to be different. Everyone wants to be different. Everyone wants to be, dare I use this term, a snowflake. Conservatism sees a rise in alt-right mentality, personalities, populism, Trumpism, etc. over the last couple of years, especially over the last election cycle. And it's those of us that try to adhere to principles no matter what, the constitutionalists, that are the outcasts. Seemingly, it sure as heck feels like it at times, especially on college campuses, where even the millennial conservatives are buying into Trumpism. Oh, but now even the phrase constitutionalist is being hijacked. How, you ask? Well, we're going to talk about a pretty sensitive subject coming up next. We talk Tommy Lahren and toxicity in the conservative movement next.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Hey everyone, we do not have sponsors, and by we, I mean me. I don't have any sponsors. So I want to take this time to tell you about some projects that are always at the top of my list and in the back of my mind. They're fantastic projects. The NazareneFund.org. For several years, ISIS has invaded peaceful communities in the Middle East and painted the Nazarene symbol on the door of people they seek to convert, extort, or murder. While ISIS uses the Nazarene symbol to symbolize death, we use it to symbolize life. Mercury One is a U.S.-based humanitarian aid and education nonprofit organization that established and administers the Nazarene Fund. The Nazarene Fund aids in the restoration of Christians and other persecuted religious minorities in their communities who have been targeted by ISIS for their faith. I want to make it clear, I am not endorsed by Mercury One. They have not paid me to say any of this, and I'm not directly affiliated with them in any way. Be that as it may, I think that what they're doing is extremely important, and I want to share it with you. So rather than push a sponsor for you right now, in large part because I don't have one, I want to share their mission with you and direct you to where you can go to help. Now, in 2014, the Christian community in Syria and Iraq were facing the greatest calamity in its 2,000-year history. The Islamic State, ISIS, exploded out of Raqqa, Syria, the capital of its self-proclaimed Islamic State. In a lightning strike that surprised the world, ISIS forces captured Mosul, Iraq's second-largest city, and all of nearby Nineveh plain, the traditional homeland of the region's Christian community. What followed was a campaign of extortion, murder, and displacement not only of the Christians, but of other ethno-religious minorities in the region. By 2015, a population of 3 million people was reduced to only 300,000. Most of them displaced from their homes and fleeing to other countries. In August of that year, Glenn Beck took the stage, and the Restoring Unity rally in Birmingham, Alabama, declared the situation for it was genocide. Mercury One donors immediately responded, and the Nazarene Fund was launched with the goal of rescuing 400 families. No one at the time that realized that a movement was born, and over the course of the next 18 months, Mercury One has far exceeded its original goal, and the numbers speak for themselves. 1,290 families rescued, 5,202 people saved. Fortunately, the tactical situation is changing. Coalition forces have liberated most of Nineveh. Mosul will soon be under Allied control. An attack on Raqqa is imminent, and Mercury One is shifting its focus from rescuing to rebuilding and restoring the lives and communities of these persecuted people. We're so happy to shift this focus from providing immediate basic care for individuals to rebuilding and restoring communities by funding projects that will have a future impact on health and education for years to come. Mercury One funded projects include a medical clinic in Lebanon, a medical clinic in Greece, school in Beirut, Lebanon, a school in Athens, Greece, a mobile trauma center in Acre, Iraq, a trauma center in Al-Qash, Iraq, a community center in Nitra, Slovakia, and a transport van in Brazil. As their mission continues to evolve both internationally and at home, please continue to support all of Mercury One's efforts by donating now. To donate, go to mercuryone.org or thenazarenefund.org. It's a great cause. They need your help. If you're able to donate, I encourage you to donate. I encourage you to go, again, thenazarenefund.org, and donate if you can. God bless. LAUS DEO. I want to talk to you about the 912 Project. Now, this is something we've discussed on the show a lot. And I mean a lot, and it's something we're going to discuss on the show a lot more. At the origin of America, our founding fathers built this country on 28 powerful principles. These principles were culled from all over the world and from centuries of great thinkers. We've distilled the original 28 down to 9 basic principles. And if you believe in at least 7 of them, then we have something in common. They've also added 12 values that represent the qualities of those who founded our country. If we can all live by these, we believe America can get back on course again. Now, their advisory board consists of some amazing conservatives and amazing people. Yvonne Donnelly, Maria Acosta, Michael Pelka from The Blaze, Stephanie Scruggs, Mimi Steele, Aaron Wilson, Jason Roberts from NetFusion Studios. All these people promoting the 912 Project, and I encourage you, this valued listener that we have here on the Lanterns Radio Network, to go to the 912-project.com to find these principles and values on their webpage. Share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter. We're trying to start the 912 movement again. At least I am. And again, I want to make it clear, not endorsed by these, but by this organization. I am not sponsored by them, but I believe that their mission is important. And what is their mission? The 912 Project is a volunteer-based, nonpartisan movement focusing on building and uniting our communities back to the place we were on September 12th, 2001, the day after America was attacked. The day after America was attacked, we were not obsessed with political parties, the color of skin, or what religion you practiced. We were united as Americans, standing together to protect the greatest nation ever created. Our goal is to bring us back to that same feeling of togetherness again. Our mission is to inspire individuals to connect with their communities through education, service, and dedication to the 9 principles and the 12 values to which we have committed. To find these principles and values, go to the 912project.com. That's the 912-project.com. The 912-project.com. Tommy Lahren, I have no idea how to pronounce her name. On this Tommy Lahren issue, I think Ben Shapiro wrote a fantastic article, and it wasn't just on Tommy Lahren, it was on how success is not the same as truth, in sort of a letter to Donald Trump. I'm going to read a few excerpts from his article on the dailywire.com. dailywire.com. According to a Gallup poll, President Trump's approval rating currently stands at 37%. That's not good news for a president that's just been in office for 8 weeks. But President Trump took to Twitter to go after CNN, which made the mistake of reporting the Gallup poll. What Trump had to say is pretty typical to Donald Trump. He said on Twitter, "Just heard fake news CNN is doing polls again, despite the fact that their election polls were way off. Disaster. Much higher ratings at Fox." This is Trump's typical approach to disagreement. Slam his opponents as unsuccessful. Undoubtedly, that's bred of growing up in the lap of luxury. But apparently being shunned as noblarish by the Manhattan cocktail circuit in his youth. I probably didn't pronounce that right, but whatever. He sees his bank account and fame as evidence of his own worth. But Trump expands that standard of success to everyone and everything. Every organization he doesn't like is, quote-unquote, failing. Every person he despises is a loser. Truth has nothing to do with success, and America requires leaders who care more about truth than they do about success. Moving on in the article, because I don't want to just read his whole article. This mentality isn't restricted to Trump, obviously. Large swaths of the right seem to have bought into the equation between winning and truth. That's why Tomi Lahren became a popular figure, despite her obvious shortcomings as a conservative and as a thinker. Lahren is a Trump knockoff when she tweets things like this. After going on television and essentially calling pro-life conservatives hypocrites, she said on Twitter, "I speak my truth. If you don't like it, tough. I will always be honest and stand on my truth." She fights. Sure, she's not fighting for the truth. She's merely fighting for her truth. But she's fighting, don't you see? At least she's not a wimp. Conservatives used to value their values. We used to worry more about truth than victory, because without truth, actual victory would be impossible. Replacing falsehood with falsehood isn't a worthwhile goal. Conservatives used to believe that. But the way to fight that tendency on the right isn't to buy into leftist premise that truth cannot be victorious, and that abandonment of truth is a prerequisite for successful politics. Trump's formulation, victory is truth, losing is falsehood, CNN must be lying so long as their ratings are lower than Fox's, is a recipe for falsehood on all sides. Again, this article from Ben Shapiro on dailywire.com. The article title is "No, Success Isn't the Same as Truth, President Trump." I encourage you to go on dailywire.com, read the full article, because I'm not going to read his full article. I think you going to that link and sharing it on Facebook and Twitter is more vital, because then more people see it, and I think it's an important article to share. Currently it has just over 1,000 shares on Facebook and 259 shares on Twitter. As I speak now, needs a lot more, because more people need to see it, because it makes a great point. Conservatives now are more concerned about simply winning than they are principles and values. We've talked about that for the last few weeks here on the Free Stater with the 9/12 Project. It's so sad, and it's an example that true constitutional conservatives are in the minority. The 9 principles and 12 values that we talked about, we've forgotten about them. America's good. I believe in God, and He is the center of my life. I must always try to be a more honest person than I was yesterday. The family is sacred. My spouse and I are the ultimate authority, not the government. If you break the law, you pay the penalty. I have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but no one is guaranteed equal results. I work hard for what I have, and I will share it with who I want. Government cannot force me to be charitable. It is not un-American for me to disagree with authority. The government works for me. I do not answer to them. They answer to me. Then the 12 values: honesty, reverence, hope, thrift, humility, charity, sincerity, moderation, hard work, courage, personal responsibility, gratitude. We've talked about these principles and values for so long, and we're going to keep talking about them because it's important, and we can't forget them. It makes me so sad that we've already forgotten. It makes me so sad that conservatives are more, or should I say quote-unquote conservatives, are more interested in just winning than they are clinging to eternal principles and values that are found in nature. There was another article on Mark Levin's Conservative Review written by Daniel Horowitz. I'm going to read an excerpt from it, and then I'm going to encourage you, as always, to share it on Facebook and Twitter. 12 voices were shouting in anger, and they were all alike. No questions now what happened to the faces of the pigs. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which. That's from Animal Farm, a great book. I read Animal Farm back in my sophomore year of high school and immediately recognized it as a commentary, a political commentary, and it was a fantastic book. If your kids haven't read it, I encourage you to plop them down and read it to them or have them read it. Books like Animal Farm and Fahrenheit 451 are essential. The Republican and Democratic parties, that was me saying that. That wasn't the article saying that. We're getting back to the article now. The Republican and Democrat parties are essentially a bad unibrow with one distinction. Whereas Democrats lie in their pursuit of their goals, Republicans lie in the pursuit of the other side's goals, ideology and objectives. They said we needed the House. We got it. They said they needed the Senate. They got it. They said once we have the presidency, we'd repeal. We have the presidency. The fifth sentence of Paul Ryan's, quote, better way to fix healthcare declared, Obamacare must be fully repealed so we can start over and take a new approach. Now they look at us like we're from Mars when we actually want them to repeal it and not merely preserve it with more insolvency. President Trump got it right when he wrote The Art of the Deal. You can't con people, at least not for long. If you don't deliver the goods, people will eventually catch on. Isn't that funny? At some point, conservatives must realize the Republican Party doesn't share our values, not just on health care, but on almost any issue. This at its core is why people desperately wanted a dramatic change and nominated Donald Trump. But if Trump is merely going to allow the swamp to continue dictating the terms, processes, and policies, and if he continues hiring liberal personnel in the White House and in the departments, nothing will change. Trump must begin building the case for full repeal of Obamacare. Pin the blame on the Democrats and demonstrate how nobody will have any insurance left if Obamacare is not repealed. He should lay out a vision for what true market-based healthcare looks like. True market-based healthcare looks like. Now he links to another article called 20 Ideas to Crush Obamacare and Cure America's Healthcare Crisis. I've read it. It's a great article. I encourage you to go check it out on theconservativereview.com. Continuing, Trump must begin building the case for full repeal of Obamacare. Instead of codifying Obamacare with GOP votes, Trump should be working with people like Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows to pass out some of our 20 immigration and homeland security ideas. That links to another article. He should be working with conservatives to enact you get the idea. As for conservatives in the grassroots, they need to look long and hard before they reflexively vote. And this is what I want to get to. This is the meat. Conservatives need to look long and hard before they reflexively vote for lying politicians in 2018 just because they have an R next to their name. Oh, but that's been the problem in the conservative movement for so long. Conservatives, people who identify with our little conservative movement, are really, really, really good at settling. Are really, really, really good at saying, here's a strong man. Here's a guy that fights. He'll do the fighting for us. And I tell you, in my limited political expertise as a 20-year-old college student, that is a recipe for disaster, and that is a recipe for progressivism. Fight your own battles. Why is that such a hard concept? This subject on Tommy Lahren whatever, I don't know how to pronounce these people. It's like Milo Yiannopoulos. That's a hard name to pronounce. These faux conservatives that have appealed to the masses because they fight. even though they don't fight in truth necessarily. It's not enough to be an anti-SJW. You have to stand behind something. 2 months ago, Tommy was pro-life. Now she claims she's pro-choice. That's a pretty drastic change to go over just a few months. She went on The View. Don't know why you would go on The View, but she went on The View. Maybe it's to reach the other side. I can't criticize her for going on The View. I think Beck going on Samantha Bee was a good choice, even if Samantha Bee doesn't necessarily reciprocate the principles that Beck is promoting. Tommy LaRonde went on The View, and to the shock of a lot of conservatives, came out, in a sense, as pro-choice.
Putting your money where your mouth is. Rhetoric doesn't bother you, but let me ask you this. You call yourself a conservative Republican and a constitutional conservative, but you also consider yourself pro-choice, which is interesting to me because 68% of conservative Republicans think that abortion should be illegal across the country.
See, what bothers me, right, is it's all smiles. We're talking about the mass genocide. We're talking about infanticide. We're talking about killing babies, and it's all smiles all around on this View table.
The board.
No, I'm pro-choice, and here's why. I am a constitutional, someone that loves the Constitution. I am someone that's for limited government, and so I can't sit here and be a hypocrite and say I'm for limited government, but I think that the government should decide what women do with their bodies. I can sit here and say that as a Republican, and I can say, you know what, I'm for limited government, so stay out of my guns, and you can stay out of my body as well. So I think it's...
You need to go out and speak to women about that.
I do every day. And, I get a lot of attacks from conservative women as well.
Yeah.
I think it's
unusual.
Equal hate from all sides for me.
You don't have any
Tommy, I told you that we wouldn't bite. Everybody, give it up for Tommy.
Yeah, we wouldn't bite because you're saying what we would agree with, save for maybe the gun issue, but being pro-gun and being an anti-social justice warrior, or being anti-leftist or campus leftist or whatever you want to label them as, that alone a conservative does not make. That alone a constitutionalist does not make. I'm sorry. Yes, I do want more voices in the conservative movement. But at the same time, I'm not really a fan of the hijacking of the term constitutionalist. You can't be a constitutionalist without being pro-life, because at its very core, constitutionalist principles, you need to support life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Pursuing happiness does not guarantee you equal results, as we see in the Knife 12 Project, but the right to life is at the very core of the conservative constitutionalist movement. If you don't believe in the right to life, I have a hard time calling you a conservative. I'm sorry. But at the same time, I'm not sorry. Tommy is very good at garnering an audience because she's able to appeal to their emotions just like Trump is. They're both fighters, and people like fighters, even if they're not fighting for a cause that is necessarily constitutional or conservative. I shouldn't say that, I hope and I pray that one day conservatives, self-identifying conservatives, can get back to principles instead of personality types, and realize that fighting means nothing unless you're fighting for principles based in eternal truths. God bless LAUS DEO. Until next time, I'm Ian Ballinger. This is the Free Stater.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.